Welcome to the Empire State of Mind. On this episode, we have Pat Flynn, who went from flipping 420 houses a year to catching a vision that would last his lifetime.
We believe the purpose of owning a business is funding your perfect life. Welcome to the next generation of growth and opportunity in the inspection industry. This is the Empire State of Mind. Empire State of Mind. Helping build companies with faster growth, higher profits, and more time freedom. Finally, a podcast for the home inspection industry and beyond. This is the Empire State of Mind. And this is your host, Matt Williams.
Welcome to the show. I got to tell you, today's a good day. We have Pat Flynn on as our guest. And if you were at the IEB conference, he was one of our keynote speakers. And he was an absolutely inspirational, talking about how he grew his business up to a certain size and how he hit a lid and had to restructure and catch a new vision for his life and for his company. Hey, Pat, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Appreciate you having me, Matt. Glad to be here.
It's good. I'm glad that you're here today. Hey, we were talking a little bit off the air before we got started, and you were telling me a little bit about your background. And your background, you started off, I think you said on a drilling rig, right? And then started doing some real estate. And then you eventually grew one of the largest house flipping operations in the United States. Can you help our audience understand what was that like? What were you doing there?
Yeah, so I went to a small military college up in New York called Kings Point. Always wanted to be a Marine like the old man. And that didn't end up working out. But what did happen there was I've always been into kind of money and wealth building. And even in high school and everything, you hear those stories of like the kids selling donuts or whatever. I always had that kind of gene in me.
I love that.
Never really knew what to do with it because it kind of came from a military type family. And Robert Kiyosaki is actually also a Kings Pointer where I went, and he also played rugby there like I did. And the Kings Point rugby alumni kind of group there has always been really tight. So when I was a senior, he came and spoke. It's because it's his alma mater. So he comes for free every couple of years and speaks to the senior class. And he talked about his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he talked about wealth. And I read the book immediately after. And that's where the itch started. So I sailed on ships for a few years after school on oil tankers in the engine room. But the whole time I bought my first property in 2010 in Massachusetts. And at that time, it didn't matter what you bought. As long as you held it for a little bit, you were going to win, because I graduated school at the bottom of the market, the bottom of the real estate market. So very fortunate for that timing, but just started kind of buying houses and flipping them a little bit at a time. I worked 6-8 months a year on the oil tankers, and then was home for the rest of the year. So I had time at home to do stuff and had a little, money in my pocket when I came home. So I was very fortunate career path and timing, how the whole thing worked out. And then went to offshore drilling for about 5 years and moved to Florida with a very similar schedule. So sold all my stuff in Massachusetts when I moved to Florida in 2013, and just started again down there, started going to all the REI meetup events, met as many people as I could, did a little wholesaling, bought some rentals, made as many contacts as I could in the area. And then in 2016 is when I left that and jumped into real estate full time. And the only reason that happened actually is because my girlfriend got pregnant and we had our first kid in 2017, and very unplanned. But if that didn't happen, they probably would have never forced me into this full time, because it was always good. I was always making good money on the drilling rig, and this was always a good side gig while I was home. So everything was kind of working. I knew I'd make it my exit at some point, but it was one of those things where it's never the right time, right? It's never the right time to pull the trigger, whether it's starting a family, starting a business, quitting your job. So I was forced into it, and very, very fortunate to have that happen. And then through that time period over the past 7 years, did a bunch on my own for a little, got with a business partner, started learning everything I could about running a business and hiring and traction and EOS and setting goals and managing people and leadership and running an organization. And just one step at a time, I had this vision of over 400 houses a year flipping. I had this vision of a 300 house rental portfolio, and I have a vision of a buzzing sales team buying 30 houses a month. And we accomplished all of that in the 7-year time period, just going one quarter at a time and setting and finishing the priorities that needed to get done.
That's fantastic. It's interesting how what can be possibly viewed as not a tragedy, but like, your girlfriend gets pregnant, it's unplanned, and that's not a tragedy. I mean, some people might consider it that, I guess, but but that's not like what could be considered as a disruptor in a negative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, man, that just like really changed my life in a potentially negative way. Some people might,
Big
right?
time.
Big time, right? It's possible. But what was potentially something that disrupted you to,
well, it's all how you look at it, right, Matt?
Right. Yeah. It was like, a catalyst for you.
It's very easy to look at that situation and be like, holy shit, my life's over, sort of thing.
Right.
And it's completely all in how you look at it.
It is how you look at it. And that became a catalyst that launched you into building a huge, fantastic company, a catastrophe or something that I view to be something like catastrophic or a huge shift, a big shift in my life. And I think sometimes human nature is to pull back and be like, play it safe. Like, well, you know what? My oil drilling gig is great. I make enough money. I'm going to hold down and like play it safe. And you actually kind of went the other way and you said, no, I need to push harder forward to provide for my kid and my family or whatever, like all of a sudden you kind of took it to a different direction. But some people may have like said, I'm going to get a basic 9-to-5 job just to hold it down. And so I can provide for my family. And you took it to a place of, I don't know, catalytic growth, a catalyst to be able to take a huge shift in your life. I love that. I love how you did that.
I will tell you too, though, for those people that may be like thinking about taking a big jump like that, for me, it was not an easy decision whatsoever. It was a painful growth period in my life. And I questioned myself a million times on if I was doing the right thing, because like you said, I mean, you make good money offshore. I was still home, 5 months a year. And I had health insurance, great health insurance. It's like giving
as an entrepreneur, you don't have that.
It wore on me. Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this is an easy decision. Time to roll. So it never is for anybody. It never ever is an easy decision. It doesn't matter what your personality profile is. It's just tough to make that call when you have a kid on the way or a family to provide for, or whatever it is.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Yeah. I've got a wife and 2 kids of my own. And I know there's been times where, decision that maybe I would make if I was single versus, well, no, I've got more responsibility on my plate. I need to make sure I'm taking care of that too, and, I think there's those seasons. And so you had this vision in your head of doing 300 rentals, 420 flips, 30 deals a month. And then one day you woke up and you realized you had it, right?
Yeah. And then we just got there. And, until that point in time, I had read so much about business and so much about leadership and vision. But to be honest, I always put that vision piece, always put it on the back burner. I didn't do a great job articulating that vision to the staff and everything. It just kind of happened for me because we were so involved. But I never knew the importance of leadership in a company having a vision and everyone knowing exactly where we're going until we hit my previous vision and we didn't have it anymore. And it was gone. Wow. And we had lost, you think you'd hit it and you'd celebrate like you're winning. And we did, right? It was financially awesome. The team high-fived, but then it's like, what's next? Then you're just, if you're not growing, you're dying, sort of thing. And it truly started to feel that way. The whole office lost purpose. We started to lose people, started to lose employees. Employees started to bicker and fight because we weren't kind of a team anymore. You become more of a team when you struggle together towards a common goal. And we just didn't have that anymore. We switched from an offensive mindset to one of defense and sustainability. And that is just not the way that I operate. And like I started to kind of step back and wasn't enjoying my day to day. And so the importance of setting that vision for your staff and your team is, it can't be understated. And I never thought it was a big deal until I saw what sort of poison it can be to a company when you don't have it.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there's actually a quote out of the Bible that I love all the time. And there's one, it says that you got to write down the vision and make it clear and make it plain. It says, without vision, people will perish. And so without that vision, without that goal in front of them, people start to fall apart and teams fall apart. And you start to see that happening in life. And it's so applicable to business where, it's like, you got to have that vision. In fact, in the real estate market over the last 12 months has been a little bit, it's a moving target. That's been changing rapidly. The Fed's increased right about this time. Well, maybe it was last spring, actually, of last year. They started moving interest rates up. And I think it was May. It was April or May or something, maybe June of last year. They started moving interest rates up, and that started impacting the real estate community, which I know March was the first one. And you knew, like, you were in that business and you felt the impact of yours. Well, I'm also in the real estate sector, and I felt the impact on that as well. And when the market started to shift and change, you talk about offense and defense, being part of the IEB community, jumping on some of the coaching calls that they have. They were actually telling us as inspectors, they were like, hey, listen, your natural reaction is going to be to pull back and be defensive, but this is the season to be offensive. And I listened to them, and I did everything that they basically, all these coaches were like, this is really what you need to do, is be offensive, not defensive. Don't be on the front end, not on the back end. And so I did that, and my business grew significantly through the middle of the downturn. And I watched my competition be defensive, and a lot of them went out of business. A lot of them shrunk. They were laying people off. They were struggling. And I actually pushed really hard forward, and we took a massive amount of market share. We went up 10 points in market share over the last 12 months, strictly because we were pushing so hard offensively in the middle of the downturn, right? And it's like, but if I didn't have the vision that I had, then I probably would have been like, well, man, we just like, hold on, like this is going to be a storm, like don't go anywhere, don't do anything. And so I think that idea of what you're saying.
Then you're reacting emotionally to the day to day.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I don't know about you, my emotions can lead me astray really far, really quick. So that's really great. Yeah. The emotional side of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So now you're there. Like you have this vision. Now you're achieving it. Now it's like you hit what? Like just hold steady mode, and you can't do that for long because then you start sliding backwards. So where'd you go from there?
Yeah. So that's what happened. And I talked about this transitory period, at the IEB conference. That was the whole meat of my talk is how do you find your direction in the fog? So you mentioned rates started to jump in March of 22. In June of 22 is when the Fed bumped interest rates 50 bips in 1 month. And that was, I'm not going to say the final blow to us, but our margins got crushed based on our business model during that time period. So that's when it really started to sting us. So probably through the first couple quarters of 2022, we had already hit like our goals, and we were just sustaining. So we lost our mojo, but we were still making money and things were still good. When the Fed bumped the rates 50 bips, that's when things started to deteriorate, when there was not a ton of vision. I did have a vision to get us out of that hole, but it was when kind of me and my partner no longer agreed on that vision, and things started to kind of deteriorate. We had some people leave, and we never had people quit. Like the year prior, we had won best places to work in Jacksonville, #1 for medium-sized businesses in Jacksonville. We were #1 in the city, which I was very proud of. But then we like, before my eyes, it started to deteriorate, and we had
Oh
people
man.
quit, and volume was going down, and me and my partner didn't agree on what we should be spending in marketing. So if marketing spend goes down, as
Uh-huh.
deal flow and revenue goes down, it's like this horrible death cycle that starts
Yep.
to happen. We
Yeah.
disagreed on the future. We disagreed on staff members, on firing. So ultimately, we ended up doing a layoff in early 2023, which was kind of the final nail in the coffin on what was happening. We limped around for a couple months after that, and ultimately, me and him decided that we weren't going to be business partners anymore. It was best that if we just moved on. Nothing, no animosity or anything. We just had very, very different views of what the future looked like. I had
Yeah.
spent this previous 3 months kind of wrestling with the fact that my vision and dream of 30 houses a month and being a top 3 flipper in the country had happened, but I severely failed my team in not knowing what was going to happen next. So now, this next time around, finding the right business, the right strategy, that a vision could not only carry me through the rest of my life, but also take care of my staff and my team and my leadership around me, and make sure they are able to hit all their goals in life, whether it's wealth or personal development or work time balance with family. I wanted to craft the perfect vision for me and for my team to be able to carry us on no matter what the market conditions were. No matter if the wind was blowing from the north or from the south, we may have to adjust a little bit, but we continue that 20-mile march on. So I had spent the last 6 months crafting that, shared it with my partner. We were not on the same page at all. So it was kind of a high five, like, hey man, time to go our separate ways. So now I'm 3 months in to putting this vision to work that feels insurmountable right now, but I just know the way we operate quarter over quarter, we are going to get there. And we'll slowly march over time. And I'm very excited for the impact that I can have once we fully get us up and running. And I'm happy to share it too, Matt, if you want to get into that and why I
I
think
do.
it's
I do want to get into that.
forever.
Yeah, I do want to get into that. I like what you're saying though. Like the idea that you had this business partner for a season, and then that season shifted and changed and ended, right? And so the market shifted, that changed your business model. But I mean, being able to look back and celebrate, hey, the season that we had together as business partners, look at the amazing things that we did. You know, we built this thing, top 3 flipping company, 400,
Sure.
whatever. Your vision got accomplished, and you see this major thing. You guys did something significant in that time period, and to be able to also have the maturity to go, you know what, that season was fantastic. We need to shift to a different season. Now we're no longer aligned. Doesn't mean you can't be friends. Doesn't mean you can't have good feelings towards each other. I think I don't know, I've had business partnerships where I hung on to longer than I should have, only because I had this idea in my head that it was going to be forever. And I think that there's seasons for things. There's seasons for all kinds of stuff in life. And I think that to be able to have the maturity, like you're explaining, of like, you know, hey, that season was just over and we moved on, and now hopefully you can both celebrate each other's wins and you're at each other's direction, and you can still be friends in the sense of like, hey man, you're crushing it, good job, and kind of back and forth. I mean, that hopefully that's something that it can grow into and be a good longstanding relationship. But those things are still extremely painful. Separating and those big changes. Change is painful. Doesn't matter which way you cut it. But I would love to hear your take on what your new vision is and what you're talking about.
Sure. So, I mean, first off, your analogy of seasons, I love that way to describe what it is, because it very, very much is that. So partnerships are seasons. You have seasons with your family. And what I experienced at the end of Yellowbird right there was a season of extremely hard work, followed by a season of kind of having to figure yourself out a little bit. And that transition from working a lot of hours every week to like trying to figure the next thing out and also working a ton of hours every week, that was not the right thing to do. it was a season of me having to pull back on the hours I was work, spending more time with my family, more time with my head in books, more time in the gym, more time connecting with people. And when I finally figured out that that was the season I was in, more connection with people and family, and it wasn't a season of work and making money, that's when things started to click for me. So being open to the idea of seasons, Matt, like you said, and being more in tune when they change, I think can become a superpower for people. And I feel like I'm getting better at it and better at it as life goes on.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when moving forward from here, you've got a new vision. You're already starting to implement it. What are you working on now? What is the next chapter for Pat Flynn?
So I tried to dive deep into what I was passionate about, and a bunch of ideas that I won't bore you with came to mind, and nothing really clicked for me that I really could actually gave a shit about. The only thing that I really truly cared about and that fired me up was the team around me, and coaching leadership and teaching leadership and watching someone grow from not really having any experience doing it to starting to lead people and have confidence in themselves and grow. And I got extreme joy and satisfaction from watching that. So I came to the conclusion that it doesn't really matter what business you're in and what you do. What matters is that there's people and a team around you, and you guys can grow and struggle together, because that's what I enjoy. So I decided to stay in real estate, because why not? I already have all the connections. I know a lot of people in the community. I have lending connections, a background, a resume there. So why leave a space that I'm already connected in if you don't give a shit to move to something else? You just care about growing a great team. So decided to shift from the house flipping to new construction home building, because several reasons. One is just the fact that there's not enough housing in America. We're way underbuilt. Two is I live in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, so right in the center of the Sun Belt, and there is so much land in Northeast Florida. Not that I'm the guy that wants to develop every corner of America, but we are very underhoused, and there's a lot of land, a lot of wasteland downtown in these areas where people should really build affordable housing for people. There's just a ton of opportunity there.
Yes.
And the third thing is an extremely scalable business. Unlike flipping houses, where it's like it requires so many decisions on my part. Hey, are you going to buy it or are you going to not buy it? You're going to do full-on construction. You're going to sell it as is. Are you going to do the kitchen or not do the kitchen? So many decisions for 420 houses in 1 year. It's just so painful. Where
that sounds exhausting.
Building new construction, it is the same thing over. It's exhausting, but building new construction is the same thing over and over again. And it's what I enjoy doing. We can walk in every week and we can put the right systems, processes, and people in place. We can solve problems week over week and continue to make progress and put smart people in good spots that can have a real impact. And it is repeatable, and there are a shitload of problems and a ton of hurdles to jump over. But that's the way I lead in the company, and the way our company is designed. Because when we split up, I took the whole team, and that's the way we operate with EOS. Is we solve problems every single week. We create our priorities for the quarter that are the rocks, and they always get done. So the business of home building just is the perfect fit for who we are as a business. So it's something that if you're a wholesaler or a flipper, typically you're not good at these systems and processes and having to deal with the city and that, which is fine. Wholesaler and flipping is phenomenal business, but we're just not set up for it. We're set up to build something that it can be foundational and great and grow over time. So very excited about that's the first part of it. Is it doesn't matter, if interest rates are high, interest rates are low, the market's good, the market's bad. We think we can adjust and continue to grow and build housing kind of forever. And we'll, of course, have to make adjustments and we'll have issues. But it is a company that, unlike a flipping company, can grow and can be around for a very, very long time. So what I think about the whole vision, and like I said to you before, it's not just a vision for me, it's a vision for the team around me who I care deeply about, and them being able to build wealth and grow their lives too. So I think about the vision as a catamaran, as I kind of describe them as. The catamaran is a boat that has the middle and the two, the two pieces on the side and the sail up top. So what happens to the catamaran is the wind hits it, and sometimes one side of the catamaran is way up, sometimes one side is way down, but you always have your stability in the middle. So I think of the home building company as the stability in the middle. And then your two sides, one side you have the opportunistic stuff like flipping houses, doing development deals, doing acquisitions. These are great profitable pieces of a company that you shouldn't lose just because you're scared of risk, but you should have the wherewithal to know when it's not the best time to do them. So these acquisition, house flipping, land development, buying lots part of the company, I want it to be part of what we do, but I want everyone to understand that that's a seasonal thing. It's great sometimes, and sometimes we'll pour resources into it, and sometimes we won't. But no one loses their job, right? When things go bad.
Right.
When things are good, we may push some people over there. When things are bad, we may pull them back. The other side of the catamaran is the portfolio. So single family houses, commercial real estate, and businesses. Another seasonal thing. Depending on interest rates, depending on the market, it may be a good or bad time to buy houses, do build to rent, go out and find businesses to run, whatever it is. That is your portfolio wealth building side. And it's not always a good time to be adding to your portfolio, right? It's correct. You don't just shut your eyes and say, I'm going to buy 50 houses a year for the rest of my life, because it just doesn't work that way, right? So that's the way I think of it. And I think with that setup, knowing that you have these two opportunistic pieces, one being the wealth building portfolio, one being kind of your acquisitions opportunity side, and you have this stability in the middle, which is this home building company that is always fee home building for people for the rest of the time. I think that can outlast me. And I think it could create wealth and prosperity for a lot of people. And I think from that platform, I can use my podcast and everything I do for my mindset and stuff to get out there to the rest of the world and impact a lot of people. And I'm very excited about it. If you can't,
that's very fantastic. Yeah. Oh, it sounds like it. I can hear your passion coming out. What I like about that too is in the home building side. Like right now, there's a housing shortage across the country, and there's a need for affordable housing right now, which is kind of a big conversation that's happening across the country as well, even in our markets, other markets. And so if you're meeting that need in your community, well, that need has a long runway right now, but at some point that runway will run out. It might be 5 or 7 or 10 years, but the need for housing will always be there. So if you're able to shift from affordable housing, and then now the season is lending itself more towards luxury homes. Well, now as a home builder, you can just shift your entire crew over to where the demands are at. And so you can go into luxury home, or you can go back into, middle size or affordable housing or whatever it might be. I think that's a great idea, especially if you have your other sides of your catamaran going. Now I want to go on a boat. I want to go, but now but they have the different seasons and the different things, right? And so I think that's pretty great. Yeah. So that's really good. So you've already started this. Have you started building houses yet?
This quarter, Q3 this year, one of the rocks is pour 5 foundations. They'll be our first 5 foundations we pour. So was so much to get rolling here between licensing and permitting and workers' comp insurance. And generally, there's just a laundry list of shit that we had to get through in the past 2 months or so. But finally getting there, we have 8 houses that are through permitting. We're going to pour 5 foundations, and we have 30 lots in permitting behind there. So the first year we'll start building 146 houses over our first 12 months.
That's amazing. So that's a lot. And I like how you dream big and go big, like from day one. And are you building them like spec houses and selling them? Like you finish them and then just put them on the market, or is this can a potential buyer get you halfway in the middle and make decisions and changes along the way? How do you model that?
Nope. 100% spec. We will not be dealing with buyers until the houses are done. That's just not the model we're doing. We're going the affordable housing route. We're using good products that are cost effective, and we are hitting that lower $225,000 to $300,000 market. And a lot of people buying those houses are thrilled just to be in a new house. So no buyer decisions whatsoever. 30%, I would say, a third of what we do is just going to go on the market full retail and be listed by our real estate team, which the company's called Flight Building. Our real estate team calls the Flight Group, and the girls will list about a third of them. The other 2/3 are an investor client of ours, and they'll sell to investors, or they'll sell to hedge funds, or they'll do whatever they do with them. But Flight Building is solely fee building. So the building company's not going to own any land. That's the other side of the catamaran, right? So if you don't own any land and you're just a fee building company, that's what allows you to be the center of that catamaran. It doesn't own any land. I'll own that on the other side, on the one wing.
That's a good model. Yeah, I see builders that go out and they'll buy massive lots, then they'll develop them, and then they'll put in the utilities and they'll do all of the infrastructure work, and then that same builder company is also coming along and building the houses that go on that lot too. Excuse me. And so you see them kind of doing the entire thing, and then I don't know. I think I love the idea of splitting it up and having like a separate development company, and then just having the building company being the way it is. I think that's a really powerful model. I like that a lot. You
appreciate that.
Yeah, man. So you mentioned that you have a podcast. What's your podcast called?
It's called Pints with Pat. So I used to drink a lot more 7 years ago, before kids. So I used to do it weekly, and I would drink a different beer every episode and talk about that a little bit. But the name kind of stuck pretty well, but it's weekly and it's short. It's a lot of purpose stuff we do here. It talks about being authentic to yourself. And to be honest, like, I was interviewing a lot of people in the podcast, and I really didn't enjoy talking about real estate that much with people across the country. It just became a pain point for me. So now I use my podcast as almost a personal journal, personal audio journal. And I talk about what's going on in the company, challenges I've faced, things I've learned. And I talk about those kind of three things every week, is like what's going on with the company, challenges we face, and things I've learned that week, and just my attitude about certain things. And I just think it's going to be a really cool thing to look back on 5 years ago, see where my head was at as, we were in the preliminary stages. It's also a cool thing for your kids to listen to one day as well, and see where your head, where their dad's head was at 35 years old, and know that, like, yeah, I had a lot of doubts too. And like, everyone has those insecurities and questioning themselves. So I really just talk to myself on it, and it's less than 10 minutes every time. And now I enjoy doing it and putting it out every week.
That is really cool. I love that idea. Especially like the idea of like your kids, when you get older, I look at my parents and I'm like, man, they made some big decisions, but to be able to have a front row seat to the decision-making process that they were going through, and to be able to hear maybe some of the struggle or some of the doubts or some of that, like to hear that front row seating, like 10, 15, 20 years later would have been, I think I would have, there's seasons in my dad's life particularly that I would have loved to know the process and the thought process of why he made decisions the way that he did. And because like some of his decision making was fantastic. And I'm thinking like, what was his process? What was he going? What was bouncing around in his head? Did he really think this was going to work? Or was he like questioning himself the whole time. And, because in hindsight, you look back and you're like, man, that was a really good decision. And he's, and he's like, yeah, it ended up working out, but then back in the day, like, did he really think that? Or was it just like, yeah, and so now it's like, I wish that'd be kind of cool to have that kind of a journal or I don't know, a reference point to be able to see kind of what's ticking in their head. So Pat, do you just have the one kid now, or do you have more than one kid?
I have 3 kids now. I have 2 girls, 6 and 3, and just had my first boy, and he's 5 months old.
Oh, congratulations. That's really awesome. So if people want to get a hold of you, right? Like, people have listened to this, they've heard this idea of catching the vision. Maybe there's people who are, I guess what are the next steps that someone would take if they maybe catch themselves in the doldrums of life where you've hit some goals, you're kind of like struggling on catching a vision for the next chapter. What are some next steps that you would encourage somebody who is in that place like you were about a year ago? What would you encourage them to start doing?
That's an easy one for me because I just went through it. So I would suggest everyone watch a documentary on Netflix by Jonah Hill called Stutz. It's about his therapist. It's a guy and I'm not in therapy. I've never been in therapy. I have nothing against it. But watching that, and that guy, Phil Stutz, is just the way he thinks about things. I think it's very, very interesting. And what he talks about a lot of his clients and how they're, worth $100 million actors and stuff like that come to him after a movie, and they're in the same spot kind of I was, just on different scales, like, what now sort of thing. Like, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. And what he says is it's a pyramid, and I'm going to screw this up, but basically what it is you need to focus on yourself, your health, and your relationships. And that's exactly what I did. I changed up my diet. I've always been like in good shape and from playing rugby and stuff, but I completely revamped my diet to where I lost a bunch of fat. I revamped my exercise routine. Tried something different. Got very serious about my meditation. I started making plans with people that I hadn't talked to in a while. So just not doing business things, not doing what I was doing before. And just from reaching out to people I hadn't talked to in a while that I may, have not done business with, had some phenomenal conversations. I reconnected with my family at a very, very high level. I got my wife involved in like the goal setting and what I was going through and where I thought I wanted to go. So when I got my personal life extremely under control and at a higher level than it's ever been at, that's when the answers just started to become clear to me. So the answers weren't clear. It was too foggy when I busted my ass every day trying to find that next business, maybe go into bail bonds or maybe be a business broker. Like, my mind was too cluttered. When I let my mind get more focused and get more clear through meditation, reconnecting with family and friends and getting in fucking fantastic shape, the answers they were obvious and they became clear. So that would be my suggestion for anyone in that spot. Start to focus on yourself, your family, your personal relationships. Get your health very, very, very much under control, and things will fall into place. I guarantee it.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. I love that. And so if somebody wants to get a hold of you and they wanted to reach out and maybe had a question about something you're doing or wanted to maybe get more information from you, what's the best way for someone to get in contact with you?
So either email is pat@flight.builders, no .com, just flight.builders, or just DM on social media. Elena does my social media, and she does such a good job with it, putting out the podcasts. And I write a Friday, Friday thoughts email every single Friday. So you can find that through you can search me on Instagram. You'll find me. I think it's Pat Flynn STF.
What's STF? Okay.
If you search Yellowbird or Flight or.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been a fantastic episode, and I hope it inspires people to reach out for a bigger vision for their life and something that can can go even further than what they thought they could go. Pat, thank you so much for being here, man. Hope we connect you on in the near future.
You've been listening to Empire State of Mind for the home inspection industry and beyond. Our passion is to elevate the home inspection industry with mindset, strategy, and tools. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. For more, follow on Instagram at IEB Coaching. And don't forget to hit the website at www.iebcoaching.com. Learn about IEB at no cost and have all your questions answered on our open call once a month on the third week of the month. We hope to see you there, and we'll see you next time on the Empire State of Mind.